Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm Ken Svensson, producer of the Trusted Leader Show. And for this week's episode, we thought we'd take a look back at a previous episode where David sat down with Horst Schulze, founding member and former president and COO of the Ritz Carlton Hotel Company, founder of the Capella Hotel Group, expert in residence at Arch and Tower, and author, to discuss how to deal with a customer complaint. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
You know, you talk about three universals. Tell us about those.
Well, the expectation of the customer, I guess that's what we talk about. Yeah, yes, it's a universal. The market, you can look at the market over there. What is a market or potential market? And there are three things for sure they want. So you better have processes and systems on measurements if you deliver it. And that's a subconscious expectation, like what you have, anybody has. You want the product to be defect-free. You know, I always use an example of a bottle of water. If you buy a bottle of water, you don't want anything to swim in there. You expect subconsciously that it is defect-free. Number two, very important, by the way, and you have to underline it 10 times, is timeliness. Everything today is very important that your timely responses, that you want that bottle of water when you want it. And you want an immediate answer to your email, etc., timeliness. So no defect, timeliness. And number three, what you want the people that give it to you, the bottle of water or whatever it is, to be nice to you, to care for you. Now, here's the crazy thing. I mean, and why businesses don't get that. The greatest driver of eventual satisfaction, eventual loyalty is the caring piece, which means you have to process and make sure that there's excellence in relationship between your employees, between you and those that buy from you. The product is not creating loyalty. Loyalty is nothing but trust. They trust you. There are three types of customer. Very fast, there's the one that distrust you, who are terrorists against your company. Now they go on social media, whatever, destroy you. Then they're the loyal, then they're the satisfied one. They go next door if they think there's a better deal. And then there's the one that are loyal to you. Why are they loyal? They're trusting you. And trust is not created with a product. It's created with the relationship moment.
Only the relationship. You say this in the book, page 77, I highlighted it. Every relationship in life starts out with distrust.
That's correct. The moment when I meet you, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to trust you with anything. I mean, and of course, it moves right away to neutral. It depends on the subconscious decision that I make about you. That depends on how we say hello and how my thinking is, how you look, and so on. We can't help that. Now, society tells you other BS and tells you should be looked. This is ridiculous. The fact is, we're human beings. That's how we react. We react. Distrust. It moves to neutral, and in business or in relationship, you try to move it as fast as possible to trust, and that depends on your behavior, on how you think. It's that simple. You know, if you don't mind for a moment,
please.
That's part of human excellence. Human excellence is number one. If you do your very best in your functions that you fulfill in life. Number two, do your very best in relationship. And of course, number three, do your very best morally. If I put those things together, but it's the relationship piece, that piece, which creates opinion in others about you or your organization.
Number three, you talk about morally, and it seems like we have some challenges in our world today. And I think it's interesting, even in the book, you talked about the Benedictine model that you went by of treating everyone as if they were Christ, welcoming them this way. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, Benedict, and you understand Benedict from the monasteries in Europe, and the monasteries were used as shelters when you travel through the land. And he wrote to his abbeys in 500. The first teaching that I learned, I could find on teaching hospitality. He said, if a traveler arrives, treat him as if it was Jesus himself. In fact, if you're the abbey, you should wash his feet. And in fact, if you're the abbey and the traveler is by himself, and you're on a fast, break the fast and have dinner with them so he's not by himself. Now, and if that is hospitality, how close can I come to that today? So I have to question myself that. If that
how does that play out in a Ritz Carlton or your work today?
Well, my work today, by the way, after Ritz Carlton, I formed a group called Capella, which I sold a little bit over a year ago, which Capella Hotel in Bali was just voted the best hotel in the world. So the philosophy works everywhere, and it worked in 5 continents, in Ritz Carlton, 5 continents. Everywhere we were, when I was running the company, we were the leader, absolute leader. And how does it work out? The same way, you come as close as possible. You make sure that your greeting is exceptional, because it is in that initial contact where the customer makes a decision about you subconsciously. Now, he or she may change that decision going forward, but there's a pretty deep decision being made in the initial contact. So we taught, for example, no matter what you're doing, if a customer comes within 9 feet, 3 meters, you look up, you stand up, you look him in the eye and say, good afternoon, welcome, or good morning, whatever. So you establish this positive in their mind immediately, which makes them feel respected, and they make them feel about that you are a professional in what you're doing in your service world. So very important moments, and always say, and instead of saying, okay, when a guest wants something, say, I'm happy to do that. It's my pleasure. Etc. So we had about 20 points which we taught, which were non-negotiable, that had to happen, any customer interaction, and they had to happen superior to anybody else who is in the business. That's we taught. We keep on teaching that, reminding them every day of it.
I love that, because, one of the pillars of trust is consistency. If you're late all the time, I'll trust you to be late. If you speak, it's the only way to build a reputation or brand is consistency. And I know you teach those every single day. But what about, I've got a complainer and I've got someone whining, and you have a whole process for how you deal with a complaint. How do you do it?
Well, we call that problem resolution. In fact, every employee was certified in problem resolution, because again, there are 3 types of customer. Remember that: the terrorist, the satisfied, and the ambassador. Your ambassador customer, and I want them to all be ambassadors. Now, if the customer has a problem, there is a potential terrorist. So in that moment, we taught our employees, if the guest has a complaint, to first of all, to follow 5 steps, if you will. Number 1, listen very careful. Listen, attentive. Number 2, empathize. Number 3, apologize. Number 4, make corrections when necessary. Number 4, delight. With that, we meant if you have a complaint about something, and to the busboy in the morning, hypothetically, that the busboy afterwards said, I feel so bad about it, I'll buy your breakfast. Now, the key element in the apology is forgive me, not forgive them. Because we know that over 96% of customers that have a concern and complaint, they don't want anything. They just want to get rid of their frustration. So we have to show that we take it. Empathize, forgive me, I'm so sorry. I make sure it will be corrected. Yes, but not say, well, they do it all the time, and them. I have nothing to do with the TV in your room. I'm a busboy. No, and why wouldn't all your employees be taught that way? Because you don't want a customer running in the situation where when we said, well, I tell them, it happens all the time, and you make him a terrorist. Instead, if the boss says, please forgive me, here, he moves immediately to being an ambassador. He's amazed.
And you give leeway for everybody. It's trained every day, by the way. Every single day, these 24 principles are trained so people hear them every day. And people and one noteworthy piece was when you said you give everybody up to $2,000 to decide themselves how they can take care of somebody, and all of a sudden you've got the whole team buying metal detectors and finding a wedding ring, right?
That's right. Well, I have to laugh every time this subject comes up, because you have to understand, David, that sounds like a story today. At the time when I said every employee has to write up to $2,000, it was a nuclear bomb went off. The investors, everybody declared me insane. They want to put me in an asylum. I mean, you want boss boys to give $2,000 away, everybody, the doorman. No, I want them to keep the customer. I want to tell them. I want to tell each employee, I trust you with that decision.
So this gets well to your 4 supreme objectives, and this changed the way I thought about business, because number 1 isn't get customers. Number 1 is what you talked about right there, and that is keep customers. Tell me about tell our audience about these 4 supreme objectives.
Just think about, if you run an organization, what are the 4 principal things that you have to work processes behind and organize and measure and so on? For me, absolute number 1, and it cannot be encroached on by 2, 3, and 4. Absolute number 1 is keep the customers that you have. And that, of course, was one decision that we made. Okay, we make sure we keep them. And particularly today, you business people, you must understand that today a dissatisfied customer can go out and destroy you on the internet and social media. So number 1, keep the customer. And every employee should be aligned to that. That's called alignment. Number 2, what you do, find new ones, of course, but much to the satisfied ones that you have, to the loyal ones that you have. Number 3, what you do, get as much money as you can from the customer. Without losing them. In other words, you're giving value. And it has to be very clear. Charge as much as you can. My goodness, we have some hotels now with Capella, $1,000 a night and so on. And we're busier than anybody else, because we're giving value for it. So number 1, keep them. Number 2, new ones. Number 2, make sure you get money. Number 4, efficiency. Efficiency, you don't do it blowing money, you do it efficiently. Well, not cost cutting, because that's what everybody is an expert in, particularly in my business. There comes the order from corporate office somewhere in the world to a hotel somewhere in the world and saying, we need more efficiency. And what do? They take the flowers away from the customer. Taking something away from the customer is not efficiency. It's cost cutting. Looking at your own processes and make sure without changing the outcome, you save money. That is efficiency. That you do that by eliminating your own mistakes, etc., etc.
Most training and development initiatives don't last or even solve the root problem hindering an organization. That's where TrustEdge certification comes in. TrustEdge certified partners are equipped with a suite of tools to identify, benchmark, and close gaps in trust for good. Because when you solve the real issue, you get measurable results and a culture where people actually want to make an impact. So whether you're a trainer, a manager, an HR executive, or a leader in learning and development, check out trustedgeplatform.com and see how you can start solving the root issue and get lasting results in your organization. And now back to the show.
I like these 4, and there's so many people that talk about getting new customers. How do you get clients? And it's so much easier, better, and more fun to keep customers. And I love where you start with this, because it made our thinking, are we really taking care of those that we have well? And that, changed our business. And they tell others.
They tell us, well, think you have a hardware store. I don't care what. And it should be everybody's objective in that store that works for you and yourself, that as soon as somebody walks in there, you convince them by your caring that they will come back even if they don't buy anything this time, that you're there for them, that you respect them. And then you have to look at that and then process this. And hope is not a process. Hope is not a strategy. You have to then make sure processes are created by selecting the right employee, by teaching them right, by reminding them, by role-playing for them, everything.
I like what you said also in the book about we don't hire, we select. In fact, correct. you select at least, you got to have 10 people to select one. But how do you get it right? So many people, I was just reading a study recently that said people get hiring executives right, whether they do assessments or not, about 51% of the time.
That's correct. Guess what? Now think about that. What if I can move it to 55%? I'm winning, have a better team. And that was I was really struggling on that for years and have tried all kinds of things till I run into an organization that helped me to assess what talent is needed in each job that I have. And then be able to ask questions and assess if that talent exists in the person that applies for the job. And it turned out when they said don't hire, they were 90% right. If they say hire, they were 70% right. But it's better than 50-50. So I spend the money. I want to have the team that I know is a better team than they have, my competition have. And so we use this exclusively, very careful, from dishwasher to vice president, everybody. But what's the result? Let me give you one result. If there's hoteliers or restaurant people listening, you know that our industry has over 100% turnover a year. So with other words, the knowledge walks right out the door again. We brought our turnover down in Ritz Carlton to under 20%, while the industry stood over 100%. So the knowledge was staying inside.
Absolutely.
And of course, the saving with money of that and long term, of course, in the beginning, it costs money. But long term, you keep more customers, you save money, you have knowledge.
And keeping the employees. I mean, if you even figure, I don't know for sure the hotel industry, but in many industries, even frontline, the cost of retention of someone you want to keep is at least 2.5 times hiring costs. So
of course,
you're saving millions right there.
Oh, it goes without saying. That's the right thing.
So, you're an expert in customer service and in people and relationships, but there are some difficult people out there. You talked about something in the book that I was fascinated by, because this is what I liked about the book. It wasn't this Pollyanna, just this or just that. It was a balanced, big view. But there are jerks that just want to take something away from you, and you call it the jerk factor.
That's right. That's right. Well, it exists, I mean, we particularly in our industry, we like to say every guest is right. And I will tell everybody in my organization, every guest is right all the time. But I also know that's not true. It's just simply, it's not, except I look here, everybody knows that I delegated. I mean, I delegated everybody up to $2,000, et cetera, decision making. But I didn't delegate that you could say a customer is a jerk. Because otherwise, pretty soon, if you have a problem with a customer, it wasn't you, it was the customer. And that's not a decision I could delegate. So I said, the only one in the organization, in the hotels around the world, I'm the only one that can make a decision if a customer is a jerk or not. And I understand that jerk. We call it the jerk factor. And it happened very seldom. And I tell the story in there when the guest called and when my manager called and said, this guest, Horst, if you like it, I know we cannot throw guests out of the hotel, but this guest is impossible. Here's everything that happened, including he pinched some ladies in the club lounge. I said, okay, that's a jerk. Now, here's what you do. You throw him out, but you do it the Ritz Carlton way. You double lock his room. You have a limousine ready for him. You have a reservation ready in another hotel. and you tell them, look, we are here to make sure every guest is happy. You are obviously not happy because he was complaining every day. Now we have tried everything. We don't know what else. The last thing we can try now is this. We got another hotel for you and a beautiful limousine. And we have people stand by to help you packing and carrying everything down. And they made sure that they have a beautiful room for you. So you're gone. and of course, I knew he would find me. That's clear. They find you. And when I answered the telephone, there was somebody screaming, "I will own you and sue you." I know that was Mr. Jones. And I said, "Mr. Jones, when you sue me, I will be in the courtroom with the ladies that you pinched." All right, so you go right ahead. He didn't sue. He showed up again in another hotel of ours. Fascinating. And the same thing happened. Same thing.
And he got another hotel ride, another limo ride out of it.
Another limo.
Well, here's something interesting. We talk all the time about how do you build trust in crisis? How do you build trust in the midst of change? And one really important thing, even before these certain social unrest, certain pandemic, and all these things we've talked about, it's how you do it. Many people complain about change. Change is going to happen, but how we deal with people, how we deal with it matters. I watched a big company, we would all know, that basically the way they laid off 1,000 people ruined their trust for a decade. And I watched another CEO friend of mine here, you would also know that brand, and in the midst of the pandemic laid off 2,000 people and kept trust with them and the brand and his leadership because of the way he did it. So I think the big takeaway here is how we do it matters in how we keep or build trust in the midst of change. Change is going to keep happening.
Well, in difficult circumstances, what is strange to understand, people all of a sudden change their vision and their values. That means they never really existed. I mean, the one thing that cannot change, no matter what the situation is, if in the case of Capella, we said we will be the finest service organization in the world. In the case of Ritz Carlton, we said our vision was we will be the finest brand and finest hotel company in the world. Well, just because there is a crisis, I don't change that objective. And we said, here's our values. We respect everybody, et cetera, et cetera. That change doesn't change either. So if I respect everybody, all investors, guests, and employees, I have to do what I do with total respect still and total caring, or I had no values to start with.
You talk about, this is interesting because it jumps to something that you call the most important speech, and your way of onboarding is very significant as far as getting people bought in. In fact, you said something, I want to see if I have it. Human beings cannot relate to orders and direction. They relate and respond enthusiastically to motives and objectives, and that kind of leads into your most important speech. Tell us about it.
People, what you want from your employees, in no matter what organization, part of what you want for them is the right behavior, the right attitude, the right behavior. But behavior cannot be taught after you're 16 years old, unless there is a significant emotional event in their life. And the first day of work is a significant emotional event. And what do? They arrive, we let them fill out some papers, and then the manager makes this pathetic speech of being a team. We're a team here. Oh, wait a minute. Without giving an objective.
Or because a family.
Or family. Yeah. Oh, we're family. Yeah. And so, what is a team? A team is a group of people who have a common objective and help each other toward that objective. But we don't give them the objective. After all, they're only here to fulfill a function. That was the first mistake. We should hire them to become part of us and not just fulfill a function. So the employee come in and then after making our speech, we say, the new waiter, Bill, work with Joe over here. He knows the ropes. The rope speech. I mean, it's so pathetic, everything. I mean, you're not in a rope business. So instead of telling them the first day who you are, Join me in what we do. Join me in the dreams. And here is the dream that we have. I'm giving them purpose. Because even Aristotle said, people to do well in life need purpose and belonging. So why wouldn't I give it the first day? Give them the purpose. Tell them why. Tell them how our desire, our purpose, our dream of becoming known as the finest will benefit everybody. In fact, will define you, the individual employee. And why not explain it all and explain the first day, align them to the thinking of our customer, connected to the thinking and the being of the organization. Now they're part of something rather than just fulfilling the function. I always said, David, the chair in which you're sitting is fulfilling a function, but we're dealing with human beings. We have to recognize that.
That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to check out trustedleadershow.com for all the show notes and links and information from anything mentioned in today's episode. And if you haven't already, we would greatly appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, as this is a great way to help support the show and help others to discover it. And don't forget to subscribe to find out when we release a new episode. But in the meantime, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay trusted.